Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week, along with special guest Mercedes Gleason from the Chat Disney podcast, we're going to have a deep dive discussion and conversation all about London in anticipation of the upcoming Star Wars Celebration event in Europe this April. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter and Hive at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. We look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. Plus, Force Ghost Conversations is on Patreon. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Finally, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store in order to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. And boy, what a special day this is for the podcast. Not only is it a really special day for the Star Wars brand overall, of course, the season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian came out today. Bad Batch is also going strong with another episode from its second season. We're releasing another episode today, but it's also marking the beginning of 2 episodes a week until we get through Bad Batch, Mandalorian, Star Wars Celebration. All this stuff is coming up, and really we're getting the ball rolling here in this episode with a chat all about tips and tricks and what to know, all the important information that you need to have a successful Star Wars Celebration Europe, which is taking place in London at the Excel Center this upcoming April 7th through 10th. So if you're going to the convention, be sure to listen intently to this episode as our guide, Mercedes Gleason from the Chat Disney podcast, one of the co-hosts over there, will be our guide of the person giving us all these updates and tricks as someone who lives and works near the area and has been to the XL Center a few times for various things throughout her life. So be sure to continue on to the other side of our conversation here so that you don't miss out on any of the important details that she's going to provide us about food, transportation, other things in London to see. It's all great. It's a great conversation as always with her. And be sure to check out Chat Disney for her own podcast, all about Disney and Disney parks and the various brands underneath the Disney umbrella so that you stay up to date with all of that. I mean, of course, we try and cover all the Star Wars stuff here, but there's such a massive umbrella of things underneath the Walt Disney Company, especially as it heads into its 100th anniversary celebration this year. And her podcast does an exquisite job at maintaining, keeping it all together, and making sure that the audience knows what is happening in the world of Disney these days. So that'll be on the other side of this break here. Just as a quick housekeeping note, this normally would be the time where we do our Cloud City Gossip segment, all the news that has taken place in the Star Wars and Lucasfilm galaxy over the last week. However, because this is a midweek release, we will not be covering any of that this week. It'll be on our Sunday release episode, which I believe may be the Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1 discussion. Maybe it's Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 11, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it's going to be one of those titles for this upcoming Sunday. So get ready for all that. Make sure you're subscribed to Force Ghost Conversations as we're ramping up our content for the upcoming all the whatever goodness, the season of Star Wars that you want to call it, as we head into this great time here. So on the other side of this very short break here, we will have our conversation with Mercedes all about London. All right, everyone, welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. And I am so thrilled to welcome back to the show returning guest, Mercedes Gleason, a co host of the Chat Disney podcast. Mercedes, how are you doing today?
Hi, Anthony. I'm doing great and even better for being on the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thank you again for coming back on the show. And it is time to start ramping up for Star Wars Celebration Europe. It's technically in London, but they're saying all Europe. So just a wonderful time to be a Star Wars fan right now. And I have a feeling that a lot of our listeners are heading to the celebration, heading to the convention. Unfortunately, I am not going to be one of those this year. Had to save up some pennies from going to Celebration last year and also, doing house stuff, all that. It's tied up some cash here and there. So for those that are fortunate to be able to go this year, I wanted to just do like a 101 breakdown on London, the Excel Center. What can they expect? And I thought of no better guest than to bring you on the show. So thanks again for that, Mercedes.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I'm very excited to dive into this London 101 for the Star Wars celebration.
Perfect. Well, let's get into it here because I imagine that maybe this might be the first time that a lot of people are venturing out to outside of the US, frankly, at least for those that are stationed here in the United States. They live here. So, but I wanted to go back to about May of last year when Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim concluded and they announced that the next year, so the following convention, so this year's celebration is going to be taking place in the UK, and that's where you are based currently. And I really wanted to get your thoughts about having Celebration in London this year. What was your reaction when you first learned that the convention would be taking place in your home country, in your backwoods, so to speak?
Well, shock, I would say at first. And a very good shock, a nice surprise, I guess. I think that it's really interesting to me, actually. If we look at the Walt Disney Company as a whole, not just Lucasfilm or even Star Wars, I feel like we're getting a lot of recognition by the Walt
Hmm.
Disney community at the moment, which I'm loving, and also by the Walt Disney Company. So, as a huge fan, of Star Wars and Disney myself, it's amazing. There's actually a new division now called Disney Parks UK, which is a really big deal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really awesome. And it's basically it's marketing for Disneyland Paris, Walt Disney World, and the Disney Cruise, because they're typically the experiences that British people partake in the most. And we have like this amazing competition running at the moment where they're trying to pick 10 lucky UK fans to go and do like a big tour around the world of all the Disney parks. We've got a big Disney 100 exhibition coming to London this winter. I believe it's only going to 4 cities, and one of them is London, which is amazing. There's a Disney 100 concert at the O2 in London this June, which myself and my fellow co-host Tash are going to. And there's also this weird kind of QR code virtual experience taking place in London in May for the Disney 100 as well. So there's loads of really cool stuff that the Disney Company are doing for us in the UK that we've just never had before. So this Star Wars celebration being a massive part of that as well is just really, really cool as a fan.
Wow. I wish listeners could see my face right now because as soon as you say that there's going to be a 100th anniversary concert at the O2 Arena, wow. Do you know any more about it, right? Like, do you know a set list? Did they like say some of the stuff that's going to be who's conducting it? Is it the London Symphony? What's the deal about that? I mean, I'm going off script here already, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so I am going, so I probably should know more about it than I do, and it's my birthday weekend as well, so it's just like the best
Perfect.
timing. I know, right? I know that it is an orchestra. I'm not sure if it's the London Philharmonic or if it's another. I imagine it's probably them. I know that it's various different soundtracks from Disney movies. I expect we'll get
Yeah.
some John Williams in there. I expect we'll get some Hans Zimmer as well, and then of course, I'm imagining like Fantasia, but then also probably some of the newer stuff, the Renaissance stuff as well. Probably a bit of Lin-Manuel Miranda. Who knows? But yeah, really, really cool. And again, I think that concert is touring, but it's only at select cities, so we're very lucky to get that in London.
Yeah, and I mean, London is just such a central hub for entertainment to begin with. Like, could you imagine the guest list that they could have on display? Like, they could easily bring out like a Susan Egan out to and like just. have a ball that night. Wow, I'm so thrilled for you. I can't wait to hear about that. I assume you'll probably have a full deep dive on your podcast eventually when when you're able to see that show. But yeah, that sounds incredible. Like it sounds like the UK is the epicenter for a lot of Disney 100 celebrations. And I forgot too that it is the 100th anniversary of the Walt Disney Company this year, and I'm now with Lucasfilm a part of that. It just makes sense. I didn't even think of that last year that all this would be happening. That's incredible. So that's wild. I'm very excited for you, and I hope our listeners at home get also check out your podcast afterwards so that they can follow along with that journey too.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet of you.
Absolutely. So, like I said before, from the conversations that I'm seeing online, this celebrations event, let's just call it, is maybe the first time that a lot of people are traveling outside of the United States here. And I think I've been to London before, but it was in like 2008. So it's been quite some time. But I had great fond memories of being there and just being in the UK overall for a couple of days. And I think it's a great destination for anybody that's, it's their first time traveling outside the US. There's not really a language barrier. They'll be able to get around pretty easily, I think. But aside from the Star Wars of it all, what are some of like the big tourist sites or attractions that are a must do for those that are coming to England for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, right? So I guess like the kind of traditional historical attractions, because I think when US travelers are coming to the UK, the historical stuff is kind of the really appealing stuff. So
Hmm.
we've got things like the Tower of London,
Yeah.
which now is just home to the Queen's Jewels, but used to be where like beheadings would take place. So that's quite
Hmm.
cool. We've got like the London Eye, which is amazing for views, the Shard as well. We've got Buckingham Palace as well, which is obviously was the Queen's residence, but now the King, I believe, lives there with his Queen consort. And we've also got quite a lot of Disney stuff as well. So obviously the West End is kind of the second biggest theatre entertainment, landmark in the world behind Broadway. And right now, like just thinking about Disney, we've got Mary Poppins, Beauty and the Beast, Frozen, and Hamilton all showing in London's West End. And as I say, that's just Disney, but there's lots of other amazing musicals on as well. It's also home to the last remaining Disney store in the UK, which is very sad.
Wow.
So all of our Disney stores closed down a couple of years ago in favor of like basically an online model, Shop
Hmm.
Disney. And we have one Disney store now on Oxford Street in London. So yeah, great shopping destination. Plus there's a Disney store. And if you really, if you've been to London before, or you want something a little bit less busy, you can get a 1 hour train to Brighton, which is where I live. It's a seaside town on the coast. That's where Tash and I live. And it's a very vibrant, creative city, a little bit like San Francisco.
Nice. Well, that sounds great, and I hope that a lot of our the people that are going to the convention are able to check out some of the stuff. The London Eye is definitely a must do. Like that's a bucket list experience for a lot of people. The Tower of London as well, even just to see the jewels of the royal family are incredible. And even in my time back when I was there, I actually got to see a show on the West at the West End, and I saw Wicked with the original cast there, and I hated it. But that was me being a 13-year-old. So sorry, say that.
Still going strong, Wicked as well, which is crazy. Yeah, still on in London's West End.
Very good, very good. Well, if you're a fan of Wicked, I know this isn't a Wicked cast, but if it is, if you are a fan of Wicked, then by all means go check that out, as well as the many other plays that are and musicals that are going on down there. I mean, it's really money well spent every time, frankly, because of the production values and all that stuff. It's out of this world quality compared. I mean, it's the same level as Broadway. Let's be honest. It's really great. Um, so the convention itself will be taking place at the Excel Center. What can you share about that venue and the area around it that will be helpful for our listeners who will be in attendance?
Cool. So I've been to the Excel a couple of times for work things, and also I went to a wedding show there, which was hell, and I
Okay.
wouldn't recommend going to one of those. There we are. So yeah, I mean, first things that you need to know is that it's massive. It can be quite overwhelming. I don't know if the Star Wars celebration is going to be the entire venue because it is ginormous.
Wow.
I mean, I imagine so. I imagine there's people flying from all over the world, so it makes sense. But yeah, that's the first thing. It is massive. So just take that into consideration. It's in East London. It's quite near Canary Wharf, which is our sort of business district. All that's
Mm.
around there is kind of skyscrapers. And it's one of those kind of areas that if you go to Canary Wharf, like at the weekend, for example, there's no one around. Like, I don't even think the stores open at the weekend because it is very much the kind of banking epicenter of London. So there's not really an awful lot going around. East
Mm.
London generally is really up and coming. I've got a lot of friends that have moved to East London. It's where the Olympics were in 2012, and they've
Oh,
kind
cool.
of turned, yeah, really cool. They've turned the Olympic Village into like living space, basically.
Brilliant.
So one of my friends actually lives in an apartment that like the Swedish rowing team stayed in during the Olympics. That's his home now. So yeah, I mean, East London is really up and coming, but in terms of like, if you're a tourist, it's probably not a hot destination. So you're
Mm.
probably not going to spend very much time there, apart from the convention at the Excel. And the closest airport as well, I should mention, to the Excel is London City Airport,
Mm.
which is really expensive to fly into because it's quite a new airport, and it's only really kind of business professionals that use it. So if you are flying into London from overseas, definitely fly into either Gatwick or Heathrow. They're really well connected to London. I wouldn't recommend flying into London City unless you find like an amazing deal, because it is very expensive.
Wow. Wow. So it sounds like it. I mean, the convention takes place from Friday to Monday, and for Saturday, Sunday, it sounds like it might be like a bit of a ghost town in regards to anybody that's not there for the convention. But for first time goers, that might be to their benefit in a way. Like no extra added traffic, no confusion. Like clearly, I think a lot of people will be in cosplay. You'll be able to pinpoint who else is going to the convention. If you have questions or run into problems, I think you can probably find a community that's going to the exact same place doing the same thing, right? Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, there's not going to be like workers, and in the pandemic, especially, a lot of people moved out of the city and they just commute
Mm,
in for work now. That's what I do. I just go into London once a week now. It's just much
nice.
easier. So yeah, East London, especially that sort of area, Canary Wharf, and where the convention centre is, you're not going to. It's only going to be Star Wars celebration attendees, I would say.
Nice. It'll be like its own little bubble in a way, just a bunch of people celebrating all the cool that is Star Wars.
Definitely, definitely.
Great. So, what is like the transportation system around the Excel Center? How can people expect to get to and from, or what does it look like there? I mean, give us the whole spiel about it.
Cool. So in London, you've got two kind of main, aside from taxis and Ubers, obviously, you've got two kind of methods of public transport. So you've got buses, and then you've got the London Underground, or the Tube, as it's sometimes called. And everyone pretty much gets the Tube.
Hmm.
Not that many people get buses in London. And the Excel Centre is really, really well connected. So you've got the DLR, which is the Docklands Light Railway. That's like a form of tube line. It's kind of a little bit different to the tube, but I
Yeah.
won't go into that. But yeah, so the DLR stops at the Excel. We've also got a brand new London Underground line now, a new tube line called the Elizabeth line. It was named after our late Queen, and it's amazing. You can basically get from Reading, which is like a town far to the west, and then also Essex, which is far along on the east, and you can basically get there in like an hour and a half, and previously it would take you like 3 hours, I think, if you traveled across London. So this
Nice.
amazing new line, it's really good. I think you can get from one side of London to the other in like half an hour. It's really, really cool. And that stops at the Excel, so that's definitely going to go in your favor. And if you're looking for accommodation that's like a little bit more affordable, I would definitely look at like Essex or Reading or somewhere that's on that Elizabeth line, probably Essex, to be honest with you, because we're talking about East London.
Hmm.
You might be able to find a hotel that's like not in London, but it's on that Elizabeth line. And then it's going to be way more connected. You can get in really easily. But yeah, I mean, transport in London is ace. It's similar to like New York or whatever. It's really, really easy. We have Uber, we have taxis. So yeah, should be really straightforward.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds like it's going to be pretty simple for people to maneuver, especially with those that don't come from cities with a lot of public transportation. It sounds like the system is user friendly in a way. Plus, there are the familiar taxis and Ubers in case that they need to get around. And
Yeah.
the the Elizabeth line sounds like a very smart addition to the London public transportation system. I mean, I know I know people that have gone to like the Reading Music Festival out in
Yes,
Reading.
I've been, yeah.
Yeah, nice, very cool. And I've heard some nightmare stories about trying to get out there. So it sounds like that'll also help for another thing too. That all
Definitely.
fun stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Mercedes, I bet people are wondering at home, and it's time to get really into I would say, the best part of this discussion in some ways. But let's get into some food talk here. London is known worldwide for having an amazing culinary scene. And what are some of the restaurants or even specific types of foods, even that visitors should look to have while visiting London?
Oh, the best question. You know, I'm a massive foodie, so I love these questions. The first thing I would say is it's so dependent on your preferences and your budget. So I would definitely check out something like Time Out online, and that's going to have a list of like, you know, the best dishes under £10 and the best places to go for fine dining. That's going to be a really good way to navigate. Yeah, I always use Time Out when I go on holiday, and it's really, really good for London.
Mm.
In terms of my preferences, we have a lot of food markets in London, and I love a food market so, so much. Some that really stand out are Borough Market, which is near the Shard, and that's it's central London, but it is more towards the east side. That's amazing. And there you're going to find the Hotel Chocolat restaurant. So Hotel Chocolat is a chain of chocolate shops that we have in London. They actually have, or in the UK, I should say, they actually have a restaurant in London, and everything is cooked with cacao. So you'll have like a cacao burger or like a steak that's got cacao sauce. It's amazing. Box Park is another really popular one. And again, that is East London. So that's going to be really handy for the convention. And you can get really amazing kind of street food there and things like
Hmm.
poutine and bao buns and all my favorites. And then Chinatown as well is legendary. So again, central London, really, really popular on TikTok right now. It's kind of gone viral, which is always cool. There's a chain as well in London called Ping Pong, which is amazing dim sum. And there's loads of those dotted around. So definitely recommend Ping Pong. If you want like that kind of like real Instagram aesthetic kind of cafe. We have a few. So there's Peggy Portion, which is near Victoria. There's a chain called Elan. I think there's like 4 or 5 of those. And there's also a really gorgeous kind of boutique restaurant called Sketch, which is also
Hmm.
really good. The restaurant that I've not been to yet that I really want to is Bao in Soho. I love Bao buns. I cannot get enough of them. And
Ooh.
Bao in Soho is meant to be ace. And then in terms of kind of what to have, obviously the traditional British dishes, things like fried breakfast, you've got to have that. Your hotel will probably give you that for free, let's be honest. And then fish and chips, if you do make the journey down to Brighton or any of our coastal towns, fish and chips is a big one. But interestingly, and this will be a fun task for you, Anthony, do you happen to know what the national dish of England is?
I mean, I could take a stab at a few options that come to mind here. Of course, naturally one would think fish and chips, but I don't think it's that one. So I'm gonna go slightly different here, and this may be a left field, answer here, but I'm gonna put my chips down on eel pie.
Interesting, interesting. It's actually not. I think it's even more left field than you're probably
Oh,
expecting.
wow. Okay.
So the national dish, I think this is of England, it might be the UK, is a chicken tikka masala curry.
Really? What?
Yeah, I
I mean,
know.
it's delicious. So, like, go for it. But
Really, really weird. So apparently it's the nation's favorite dish. And I think it actually, although it's Indian cuisine, I think it actually originates from the UK, a chicken tikka masala.
mm,
How wild is that? And fun fact, Disneyland Paris has just opened a new restaurant in the Disney Village called the Royal Pub, and it serves up British cuisine. It looks a little bit questionable, if I'm being honest, but it does have a chicken tikka masala on the menu.
interesting. Wow. I mean, you've been to Epcot recently. Does the UK pavilion have chicken tikka masala
It
on the menu?
doesn't. Do you know what?
Oh,
It doesn't. But what I would say is, if any listeners that have been to Epcot and had the fish and chips, they are very authentic.
are they? Well, listeners, you've heard it here that go get the fish and chips because
There
it's
you
probably
go.
as close to England as you can get on this side of the on this side of the pond.
Mhm.
Wow, yeah, I've even heard too that Bao is an incredible restaurant. Like that's even hit our scene over here as to the culinary masterpiece that it is. So if you get the chance, definitely let me know how you think one
Oh,
day
I
because
will.
that's
Oh,
on my list too.
yeah, I will be going. Definitely, it's next on my list of places to try.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I'm at my last question here, Mercedes, and I am so hopeful that people will use Star Wars Celebration as an excuse, maybe rephrase that as an opportunity, a chance, if you will, to see or venture out to Disneyland Paris because it's across the pond. We've got two parks here in the United States. This might be the one and only time that a lot of people in the states get to that side of the world. And I'm hopeful that they can either bookend or after their trip with a visit to this great park one way or the other. So, what is the easiest way to make that happen, and how can interested guests get to DLP from London?
I am glad you asked. It is very easy to get to DLP from London, which is great news. And the easiest way is to hop on the Eurostar. So the Eurostar is a really comfortable train that goes from London St Pancras, King's Cross St Pancras as well for any Harry Potter fans, is where platform 9 3/4 takes place. But yeah, sadly, they have limited the amount of direct trains recently, which is a real shame. So if you can nab a direct train, it's going to take you 2 hours from London into the park. Literally, you arrive in Disney Village. It's amazing when it works. It works phenomenally. Otherwise, if you can't get a direct train, you're going to have to get the Eurostar to Lille, which is a little French city, and change at Lille. And then when you change at Lille, you will be catching a slower train. It's not a Eurostar, and you will be with locals. And this makes the journey about 4 hours long. So it does
Hmm,
double the journey. But it's really important, if you can't get that direct train, please do not make the mistake of getting a train to Paris, because you can get direct Eurostars to Paris, and it is a bit of a nightmare getting from central Paris to Disneyland. It's just so busy. You can imagine how many people are using that direct London to Paris Eurostar every day. It's just a real horrible stress that you don't need. So if you can't get the direct train, go to Lille, change there. But hopefully you can just have a seamless 2 hour door-to-door journey. I mean, how 2 hours to Disney? Who
that's
wouldn't?
nothing.
I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, exactly. And there's lots of really cool stuff that's just opened as well. We've got Avengers Campus. I know you're a big Marvel fan as well. And we've got 2 attractions now. I think we've got the most in an Avengers Campus. I think Disneyland's has only got the one. So we've got I think our version of Web Slingers is called Web Adventure, I think. So we've got that, and we've also got a reimagining of the Rock and Roller Coaster called Avengers Flight Force, which I've not been on yet, but is meant to be amazing.
Oh yes. I mean, to, look, I drive an hour to get a hamburger. So like just add one more hour to go experience a Disney park. Why not? And if even if at worst case scenario it becomes 4 hours, like I've done stupider stuff for 4 hours of my time, like go. Enjoy. It's your vacation. Enjoy.
Definitely, yeah. The Eurostar's incredible. I mean, on a bad day, it can take me 2 hours to get from Brighton to London on a busy commute. So yeah, 2 hours directly into Disney Village. Definitely seize the opportunity if you have it.
Absolutely. And yeah, that Disneyland Paris is only getting better and better with all the new stuff that is either on the way or stuff that's there that we don't have anywhere else. Like you mentioned, a more expanded Avengers campus. Not only is there the Flight Force there, they have better, like, more restaurants there, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. Right, there's like the '50s diner that's based off of Peggy Carter and the Captain America franchise. I think there's another restaurant there
Yeah,
beyond Pim's Test Kitchen.
we have, I think there's a quick dine as well. We do have Pim's Test Kitchen. I haven't seen any large food in our one though. So
Hmm.
I'm curious to know if that's something that's on offer. But yeah, Disneyland Paris is very much on the up, and controversial it may be, but I was fortunate enough to enjoy the 30th anniversary in Disneyland Paris and the 50th anniversary in Walt Disney World. And Disneyland Paris definitely had the superior celebrations. I mean, the drone show, we now have an Avengers drone show
Yes.
as well.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
is incredible. I can't wait for that technology to make it to the US because I'm sure it will. But yeah, they've really outdone themselves in Disneyland Paris recently with just the shows alone. So yeah, definitely now's the time to visit. I think it kind of holds its own against the US parks now.
You got that right. I mean, I've seen a snippet of that drone show, and it was almost. I'm going that far. It was like life changing for me because, like, I was down on drone technology before, and I was like, it just sounds like a bunch of bees buzzing around. Like, it just seems annoying, but they crafted a story with what they've been doing over there. So if you really get the chance, like, that's a once in a lifetime experience for sure. And
Definitely.
the other thing that DLP has that we don't have elsewhere in the world, I think, that will be of interest, I think, to people attending the Star Wars Celebration convention is you all have a Indiana Jones roller coaster that I don't think it's elsewhere in the globe, and with it being under the Lucasfilm umbrella and a new indie film literally coming out two months after the convention. Go ride it. Go have fun.
Definitely, yeah. Not many people know about this attraction. In fact, I know people that have been to Disneyland Paris that didn't even know it was there because it is quite hidden way out
What?
the back. Yeah, yeah. It's really. My husband even was like, I didn't know that that was there, and I was like, well, it was closed when we went together.
Oh,
But
of course.
it's quite hidden. It's sort of just it's in Adventureland, but kind of where Adventureland and Frontierland meet, and it is quite a way back. It never has a long wait time, and it's really good. It's a proper full-on coaster. When I was a teenager, for a period of time, they actually changed the track so that it went backwards, which was really bizarre because it was the exact same ride. It was not designed to go backwards. I don't know why they thought
Okay.
that was a good idea. But it's forwards again now. And yeah, it's a really good coaster. It's probably one of the most thrilling coasters at the Disneyland Resort in Paris. So yeah, definitely ride that.
Very cool. And I know you did a recent series at Chat Disney. It may even be a year ago now. So I don't know if it was how recent you want to call recent, quote unquote. But I believe that you all did a segment on, like, first time visit, like how if you're a first time visitor to Disneyland Paris, what to do, what to see, what food to eat, what rides to do, how to do it, and all that. So for those that may be heading out to Disneyland Paris, be sure to check out Chat Disney. And of course, Mercedes, please let us know how they can find Chat Disney and where to interact with you guys online.
Absolutely. So you can find us on Twitter at Chat Disney UK and on everything else at Chat Disney. Sadly, Chat Disney on Twitter was taken. So that's the reason for the UK.
Hey, it works. It works. It helped me figure out that you're all based in the UK, and it led us eventually to this conversation that we're having here today. So, thanks again for coming on the show, Mercedes. We will definitely have you back on again in the future as new things arise in the Star Wars Lucasfilm galaxy. But until then, I thank you for joining, and thanks to our listeners at home for coming along the ride here and getting ready for all the fun that is going to be Star Wars Celebration. So we will be back, I believe, on Sunday with a new episode. I believe this may be Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1 discussion. So you don't want to miss out on that. So be sure to subscribe, check out Chat Disney, follow them on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. And share the show with your friends. This is going to be a great time. So let's celebrate all things that are Star Wars. So until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.